Ponytails. Read by Scribbler. Memento Mori by Pale Horse. Applejack breathed. It was a simple task that had recently become far more difficult. Every breath was slow, ragged, uneven. Sharp bolts of pain shot through her chest when she inhaled, as if her lungs might burst, followed by equally sweet relief when she exhaled. It was a wet, rasping rattle of a noise, and that was when she wasn't having a coughing fit. The bedroom door creaked as it opened and shut. She'd always meant to have Mac fix that blasted thing. Not much point in it now.
"Are they gone?"
she asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Not gone," came the answer. Twilight's voice, so unlike her own. Strong, regal, authoritative, like usual. She hadn't always been that way, but that was before she wore a crown. It all seemed so long ago. They were waiting downstairs.
"Waiting,"
Applejack repeated dryly.
"Waiting for me to die?"
"They're your friends, Applejack." There was no amusement in Twilight's voice.
"I know."
Applejack sighed.
"Best I could ever ask for. Just don't seem right, standing around, waiting for the end to come. Should be off doing something more important."
"Nothing is more important than this." Twilight's tone was gently chiding.
"Says you."
If she had had the strength, Applejack might have felt like arguing the point. But she didn't. So instead, she laid her head back upon her pillow, lifting her eyes to the ceiling and staring at nothing.
"Do they know what it is?"
"Yes." Twilight moved closer to the bedside. Applejack could hear her wings rustling in the darkness and the clump of her hooves upon the floor as she moved. "Cancer. Just as we thought."
"And I thought an apple a day would always keep me healthy."
It left her lips in another burst of fitful coughing, leaving her hunched over the edge of the bed. She heard Twilight approaching and held up a hoof to ward off the princess. When she had sufficiently recovered, she slumped back into the bed, gasping for breath. She didn't feel feverish, but her hair was damp with sweat.
"Anything we can do?"
Twilight shook her head. "No. I'm sorry. It's too advanced for surgery." Applejack nodded weakly.
"What about magic?"
"The procedure is very delicate," Twilight said. "We can't just wish it out of you. The tumors have to be removed carefully, one at a time, or else we'd risk accidentally teleporting out one of your organs, like your heart or your stomach. It requires a great deal of precision. Too much for unicorn magic." Applejack regarded the ceiling of the bedroom with a kind of fascination. White was such a boring colour. Rarity wouldn't like to hear that, she was sure, but it was true. She remembered hearing somewhere that it wasn't even a real colour anyway. If she had the time, she would paint it a more interesting colour. Red, maybe, like apples.
"But not for alicorn magic."
Twilight was silent. "No," she replied after a moment. "Not for alicorn magic." Applejack gave another wry chuckle. This time, at least, she managed to avoid coughing her lungs out.
"I won't let you do it," she said.
"I beg them, Applejack." She could hear the emotion creeping into Twilight's voice. It was unusual, coming from one who tried so hard to be disciplined. "I swear to you, I threw off my crown and begged them on my hooves. They refused outright." Applejack smiled faintly. That certainly sounded like her luck.
Did they say why?
She asked. Some garbage about not interfering in the natural course of events, Twilight groused. If it was an illness we knew how to treat, they'd just give you medicine. But since it isn't, they choose to do nothing. What good is having the power of an Alicorn if you aren't going to use it to help any pony?
Okay, Sugar Cube,
Applejack sighed.
Like Granny Smith used to say, horse apples happen. I guess she was right.
She was unable to keep herself from laughing, and that was a mistake. The sensation caused her to bolt upright in bed, hacking and coughing violently. She pressed a foreleg against her mouth in an attempt to stifle the sound, and felt one of Twilight's wings pressing against her back. After a long moment, she straightened her posture, looking down at her foreleg. There was fresh blood upon her hoof. Applejack turned her gaze to her friend. Judging by her expression, Applejack supposed that she must have looked even worse than she felt, if that was possible.
How long?
She whispered. Twilight frowned. It varies from one pony to the next, but given your condition, I think it'll happen tonight.
Good,
Applejack muttered.
No sense in drawing it out. I'm tired. I'm tired of feeling weak. I'm not used to it.
She leaned back against the head of her bed with another sigh, drawing in a deep breath and then letting it back out again. It was the first one she had taken in a long time that didn't hurt.
You know, Twilight, it's funny. After all we've been through, I always thought it'd be a changeling invasion, or a dragon attack, or the sky falling, or whatever the bug else that'll do me in. I have to admit, I never thought it'd end like this.
It doesn't have to.
Both Twilight and Applejack abruptly turned to face the new speaker. Neither of them had even heard the window open. Fluttershy hovered outside it, her leathery wings beating in the cool night air.
Hello, girls.
Fluttershy continued, her crimson eyes glowing in the darkness.
May I come in?
You're always welcome here, Sugar Cube,
Applejack said.
You know that.
Fluttershy smiled warmly, a gesture that exposed her gleaming fangs.
Sorry, old habits die hard.
The bat pony glided in through the window, alighting upon the floor without a sound. She drew up to the bed opposite Twilight, looking down upon the orange mare.
You're looking well.
Can't lie to honesty, darling,
Applejack mused.
I was starting to wonder if you'd show up. We missed you.
Well, I would have been here sooner,
Fluttershy said, lifting her scarlet eyes to Twilight.
but I wasn't entirely sure if I'd be wanted.
Twilight scowled. I never said that you couldn't be here.
No, but you didn't invite me either.
Applejack lifted a hoof.
No fighting, girls. My house, my rules.
Twilight had been preparing to offer a retort, but at Applejack's prodding she fell silent, although her scowl deepened. Fluttershy merely nodded.
No fighting.
She agreed.
Do you know why I'm here?
To see me off into the great beyond, I imagine. Same as every pony else.
The bat pony canted her head to one side.
Not if you don't want to go.
Applejack narrowed her eyes.
What do you mean?
Fluttershy bowed her head forward. The soft strands of her long pink mane made a whisper of sound as they pulled upon the bedsheets.
I am here to offer an alternative.
No, Twilight snorted. Absolutely not. Fluttershy turned toward Twilight once more.
It is her choice to make, not yours.
Twilight grimaced. The other princesses do not approve of that. And for the record, neither do I. Fluttershy sneered, exposing her fangs once more.
Says the immortal.
She snapped.
When was the last time any of them had to stare the Grim Horseman in the face? When did you?
No fighting,
Applejack whispered. Silence fell once more. She turned towards the Bat Pony.
What choice?
Fluttershy paused. Applejack could see that she was considering her words carefully.
You can become like me,
She said.
No more sickness, no more pain, only strength and vitality, and a kind of freedom that you've never known.
Applejack nodded slowly, then turned to face the princess.
It's Twilight.
Twilight bit her lip.
It's unnatural, Applejack.
You'd be substituting one disease for another.
It is not a disease.
Fluttershy hissed.
I am still the element of kindness. Have I ever once failed in my obligations to you or to Equestria?
Twilight grit her teeth together. No, she growled.
Then let me save our friend.
Fluttershy replied, her tone softening.
Please.
Twilight squeezed her eyes shut. She was trembling upon her hooves, whether with grief or some other emotion, Applejack could not tell. After a time, her eyes opened again.
As she said, Applejack,
Twilight whispered,
it is your choice.
Applejack turned to Fluttershy. She hesitated for a moment, and then nodded. Fluttershy nodded in turn, and bowed her head closer. Her breath was warm upon Applejack's face. Applejack lifted a hoof as best she could manage, giving the Bat Pony pause.
What'll I tell my family?
Tell them the truth.
The Bat Pony murmured in reply.
Tell them that you chose life over death.
Fluttershy tenderly nuzzled Applejack's neck and bit her. That was Memento Mori. It was written by Pale Horse and read by Scribbler. Okay, thank you very much for listening. This is the first fic I've put out in quite some time. I've been kept very, very busy this week. I went back to work on Monday after the Christmas break. And also, for those who listen/watch the videos I put out other than fanfic readings, I've also been quite taken up with what is now becoming affectionately known as Pounceade. The voice actor who plays Bucket on Heroic Tale, the radio play, also on my channel. It always feels vaguely like I'm plugging that one. I don't mean to be, I'm just trying to frame the reference for people. He had a stroke just over a week ago, and the Heroic Tale cast and I have been scrambling furiously, trying to raise some money for him to help him pay his medical bills, which currently exceed $51,000, because of 2 different hospital trips that he had to take to the emergency room, plus a buttload of medicine, and he's primed to also go into physical therapy and speech therapy following his stroke. So we're frantically raising money, and the response from the Brony community has been phenomenal. I'm not going to go on about it too much here because I've made a whole other video dedicated to it that kind of just encapsulates my thoughts, but it's worth saying again, thank you very much to everybody. Right, okay, I've got my bit of paper with my notes on it of what I wanted to say. I received an interesting email today, saying me that, oh God, I can't get my words right! Telling me that there's been an online fanfic review of 5 Things That Never Happened to Twilight Sparkle, which is a bit of an oddball fic I wrote, because it's one of, if not the most popular thing I've ever written, and it is very, very flawed. But it seems to be that people like it. But Emerald Comet, whose video I'm going to link to in the description below, has done an online review of it, where he does actually very articulately point out the good things and the bad things about the fiction. Thankfully, I knew most of the bad things that were wrong with it, although I didn't remember about the Celestia thing, about her knowing stuff at the end of part 1. So that one is just entirely me not knowing canon. I wrote that fic as catharsis after a particularly shitty day, and it kind of just took on a life of its own. So if people go and watch him and subscribe to his channel, he's only got 2 videos at the moment, but I would watch more of his stuff if he can be that articulate and that incisive and intelligent about fanfic reviews. I mean, you know what I'm like about fanfic reviews, and I do Heroic Review with the Heroic Tales cast, so yeah. I have nothing more of any value to say, so once again, thank you very much for listening. Thank you to everybody who donated or spread the word or just sent kind feelings and thoughts about Pounce. I appreciate it greatly. My next video will be out on Wednesday and features the very first outing for Dr. Wolf 001, whom you may know from the Brony analyst community. So watch this space, and hopefully, if the wind's in the right direction and fate smiles kindly, it will be out on Wednesday. Be lovely to each other, and good night, everybody.